Hello, welcome back to my studio. In this lesson I'm going to have a look at mixing color, and a lot of my art workshop students have this struggle with mixing color, and mostly it's simply about an unawareness of the basics of color mixing, and it gets quite intimidating, especially when you're standing in front of a blank canvas and you need to start mixing colors. And all this pressure builds up, and the students get quite overwhelmed at times with the idea of mixing the right color. So I try to emphasize working off a limited palette of primary colors and titanium white, and seeing how easy it is to mix your colors from that. What I'm going to do in this lesson is go slightly different, and we're going to look at what might be considered a fun lesson if mixing color is something you want to get involved with. Maybe a little bit more fun than color theory. Now, most students are quite happy to mix blue and yellow and make green, and red and blue and make purple. Things like that are fairly quick to grasp. But of course, in painting, impressionist style or representational style painting, a lot of the colors that you confront with nature are some sort of desaturated version of those colors. There's white involved to desaturate and cool down a color, and then probably a complementary color to gray it down a bit as well. And most of the colors out there are some sort of slightly neutralized color, if you can call it that. They're all colors, and it's hard to give them a name. But if you're struggling to come up with the names with neutral colors, go to your hardware store and get a few of these color swatches and look at the names they give to the colors. And it's quite amusing. Like golden goddess for some sort of yellow. The main thing is to try and work out basically what is the hue that you're looking at. Now, if you recall any of previous lessons, you know that color basically comprises of three things: the hue, the value, and the saturation, sometimes also called intensity. So the hue is the easy part. That is really the name given to a color. Grass is green, so the hue of that color is green. Okay, that's the easy part. The value we also know as being the light or darkness of that color in relationship to something else. So if the color next to it, the value of this one on top, would be considered to be a darker value than the one in the middle here, and so on. And then we get to saturation, and this is where a lot of the problems happen, because when you get the paint out of the tube, it is fully saturated, and you need to now desaturate it so it looks normal in a painting. And that usually involves mixing in some white or some other color to bring it down or adapt it in its color temperature. So that's another curveball in there, color temperature. That's a good term to use when we're talking about saturation, because colors also are either warmer or cooler than the color next to them. So they're not only lighter or darker, but they can also be warmer or cooler depending on their relationship to another color. This sort of yellow, obviously warmer than this type of green. This type of green, warmer than this type of blue. So I want to look at saturation a little closer and mixing these sort of colors that really throw students off their stride. And this exercise means popping down to your hardware store, grabbing a few of these You may have to pretend that you're going to paint your house or something. Get a few of these in a selection from yellows, greens, blues, whatever, just a spread of warms and cools. Get back to your studio and pick a couple of these, cut them out, and then just take the swatch you've cut out, stick it onto a piece of paper, maybe some watercolor paper you've primed, or some strong card that you've primed a bit with some gesso, let it dry, stick it down there, and we're going to then practice a bit of color mixing. And I kind of want to show you how quickly you can sort of get to that color if you just take the process step by step. Okay, let's have a go. Okay, so I've selected a range here from these three quite darker shades, and I'm just going to glue them down. Okay, so there they are, and I've got my colors as well, and we're looking at the basics here. Ultramarine blue, which is a slightly warmer blue, cerulean blue, which is a little cooler, alizarin crimson, which is a cool red, cadmium red light, a warm red, cadmium yellow lemon. You may want to add cadmium yellow deep as well, but that will do, and titanium white. First of all, let's start with this color over here. And as I've said, three aspects to color, that is hue, value, and saturation. So first thing to do when you're looking at your subject and you're not sure of the color, just ask yourself, what is the hue? What name would you give to that color? What does it suggest to you? And it can get pretty difficult, especially if it's quite a dark color. But I'd say looking at this, we would agree that it is a green of some sort. Okay, so that's a green. And to mix green, we need some yellow and some blue. Just keep plenty of tissue paper handy to just keep wiping your palette down so you don't contaminate your colors. Palette knife, obviously easier to do this than using a brush. And then our blue. Now you can look at it as well and ask yourself, consider the value and think, all right, it definitely leans towards what, more of a cool green or a warm green. And then you could start with perhaps more blue than yellow if it's cool, and so on. And I would say it's actually fairly in between, in my opinion. So we're going to start off more or less similar. So ultramarine, cadmium yellow lemon, and we've got a pretty good green going straight away. So let's have a look at that green as we've mixed it there, and we can see straight away our green is far too saturated. As far as value is concerned, our green's probably a little too dark as well. But as far as saturation is concerned, we need to knock that green down quite a bit. And the quick way to do that is to add in the complement of that color, green being a secondary color, not a primary, and its complement is of course red. And we've got two options. We've got a cool red and this warm red. I'm thinking that is still a fairly warm type of green. Let's put in a little bit of cadmium red light and see what happens. Alright, so we need to bring in a bit more. And that complement knocks back that green considerably. If it's gone too far, and you may think you need to add in just a little more blue, just to bring it back a bit towards, so you don't want to end up with a burnt sienna or something like that. So simply doing that has knocked down the intensity of our original green considerably. Okay, value-wise, still a bit too dark, so now we can bring in a little white, little bit at a time. Rather add little bits than too much, because it's very difficult to get white out again. Once it's in, it's there, and you may have to go back to your mixing. The important thing to remember, though, is that you can get to the color you want simply by following this process. That's all you have to do, is just ask yourself hue, value, and saturation, and start following a logical process. We've got a bit of white in there, and we need some more. Okay, so we've got the white in, and we've certainly got that value to come down to lighter. Still a bit too dark though, I'd say. So add a little more white. But you'll notice when you add in white, it can not only desaturate it some more, but it also cools it down too much. And we might need to just throw in a bit more color to try and get that color back. Very often beginners will keep adding white and more white to adjust the value, and then end up with a very chalky color and despair and wonder what's going on. So I'm comparing that, and we're getting fairly close, but I think our color is still a bit warmer, so I'm going to add a little more yellow to it. A bit more yellow. And I think we are almost there. So now let's clean that a bit. And we put our mixed color next to the color card, and you can then squint down a little with your eyes. Just close your eyes a little and see what the effect is. And I'd say that looking from where I am, the value is spot on. As far as saturation though, what's the color temperature? Is this warmer? Is that cooler? And I'd say we're perhaps still just a little cooler. So a tad of yellow, and I think that would do the trick. So this is a more interesting way to actually test yourself with color mixing. And if we go on to the next one, the next one is perhaps easier. If you ask yourself, what is the hue? All right, what name would you give this? Would it be a yellow, a green, blue, etc. Well, quite clearly this is a type of yellow. And we look at cadmium yellow, fully saturated out the tube, clearly both yellow but different animals as well. This yellow has been desaturated. So let's get out our yellow. First of all, we need to get white in there, desaturate that, and also adjust it for value. Okay. Adjust it for value. Perhaps a tad light. Now the question is, what are we looking at temperature-wise? So if I put that one down, well, we still have a lighter yellow, but it is much warmer than our color swatch. So how can we knock back a warm yellow pretty quickly? Once again, look at the complement. And we know that violet or purple would do in that respect. So I'm going to, if I don't have some already, I'm going to mix them up with a bit of ultramarine and alizarin. Throw in a bit of white, and we've got a violet. Pretty quick sticks, so put that together, put that into the yellow, and immediately a saturation change. What we had and what we have now. Intensity has been knocked back considerably. Let's do a quick comparison. Okay, so much cooler than our original yellow. And so how are we doing for value? I'll squint a bit at it. I think maybe our swatch is slightly lighter than in value. So for value, I will put in some white. Okay, that is definitely a bit of value. But what about saturation and color temperature? Once again, maybe our swatch just seems to suggest that it's a bit warmer. So warm that up. I'll put in a bit more yellow. Okay, that is warmer. Touch of white. And you may, I think, a little bit of violet again. I think we are in need of a bit more white in there, some yellow, a little too light. That's perhaps more like it. I think this here may be as close as I'm going to get right now. thing to remember, obviously, is in your purple and violet, your violet can lean towards red or blue as well. So you may need a bit more of a blue violet to get what you're after instead of more of a red violet. But we're talking about degrees. And you can see we're getting pretty close. And I think what I needed was more of a red violet to break that down. And I think that is much better. So I'm pretty happy that this yellow, desaturated yellow, is close. It's pretty darn close to our swatch. You can even touch it there and it basically disappears. So a reddish violet, more reddish or warmer violet with yellow and white, and we've got that. So this is hopefully a more interesting method to adjust and desaturate your colors into these more neutral or grey down colors that you find in nature. Okay, so try this exercise out for yourself, get some color swatches and mix. And just remember, make it easier by writing down those 3 characteristics of color: hue, value and saturation. And ask yourself, what is the hue of the color? Is it leaning towards green, blue, red, whatever? Start with that and mix that starting color, for example the green, and then decide how much complement you need to add in and how much white, and work from there. If you go too cool, add more warm color. If you go too warm, add more cool color. If you go too light, you need more color as well to darken it up, and if you go too dark, you need more white to adjust that value lighter again. And by following that circle, you will get to your destination. So no need to panic about mixing those desaturated colors. Just persist and it will become second nature to you. So try it out. Let me know how it goes.